The Vandy wide receivers will be productive despite lack of experience. This is Locked On Vandy. Let's go.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Today, we're going to be getting into how the wide receiver room for Vanderbilt football can be productive despite the lack of experience. What does a Clark Lee defense actually look like? What are the concerns? What are the pluses? And the transfer spotlight for Vandy Baseball, we're going to look at Jacob Humphrey. He's one of 4 incoming transfers. We'll look to make an immediate impact for him in the outfield. So we'll take a look at what he brings to the table for the Vandy boys. So this is the Locked On Vandy podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today. You'll get $200 in bonus bets for your first $5. You'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So Vandy's wide receiver room, they don't have star power. They don't have a lot of experience, but they have something to prove, and they will be productive. And there's a lot of reasons why. So we're going to get into that. All right. Jaden McGowan, he's gone. Will Shepard, he's gone. London Humphreys, he's gone. So what do we make of this? Do we look at Jamarion Carter? No, because he's gone. Okay, well, surely, Davion Walker will, he'll step up, right? I think he has a really good chance to be good. Oh yeah, for FAMU. So those guys are gone. Okay, so what's left of all of this? Okay, so you look at the list. All right, the incomers. The incumbents, Junior Sherrill, who had a really nice finish to the season, had some really good moments. Quincy Skinner, when he's healthy, he's pretty good. Richie Hoskins is somebody that can chip in. Ezra McAllister, again, just can't stay healthy, but has a lot of talent. So those are the guys that were already on the roster before the transfer portal even opened. All right, so you're going to add. To that list, you're going to add Jeremiah Dillon, who we've talked about. He is he's a deep ball threat that was described by Stephen Willis as smooth. He runs a 10.53 in the 100-meter. You have Loic Foungy from Texas Tech. He is big, physical receiver, really good possession guy, really good big target, physical guy, will block on the edge. He is 6'4", 215, and he can also run, though. He ran a 21.42 in the 200 meters. But again, he struggled with injuries. Jeremiah Dillon can't crack the two deep, right? Junior Sherrill has a lot to prove now. He was in the shadows of Jaden McGowan and London Humphrey and Will Shepard. He's got a lot to prove. Now, you have these incoming freshmen that see an opportunity. Now, you have incoming freshman Tristan Brown, who, according to Barton Simmons, very well could be the fastest guy on the team. He's your jet sweep guy, possibly return man. He can do a lot of different things with his speed that will make him a major delight for defenses. And when I say that very sarcastically, right? He's somebody that's going to give defenses a lot of problems with his speed and quickness to the edge. Marquise Barrett and Joseph McVeigh also, they'll have a chance to kind of get in there and compete a little bit. Unfortunately, none of these guys are early enrollees. The only one that's an early enrollee is Whit Edwards, which will he's kind of a weird case. He's listed as a defensive end. Will probably end up playing offense before it's all said and done. Don't really know kind of what he's going to do. He's kind of like he's one of those tweeners, right? He's really fast off the edge. He could play an edge guy if he could bulk up on defense, but I could also see him catching passes as kind of like a bigger wide receiver, like tight end wide receiver body type, But again, it's going to be an interesting room because when you have a lot of guys with something to prove, it's really, really dangerous. You have some talented guys like Junior Sherrill was one that really jumped off at me. He had a really nice game against Tennessee. There was that trick play that even faked out the cameraman where he kind of snuck out there and he was wide open. He's made several big catches. Quincy Skinner, again, in flashes because he's only been able to really flash on the field between depth chart issues and injury issues. Jeremiah Dillon he's probably got the most approved because he's somebody that's coming from Ole Miss that wasn't good enough to crack the rotation, but was good enough probably to start at most other universities. So again, he's somebody that I think in this system will benefit tremendously because of his deep ball abilities, his smooth route running, he's really fast. He's really sudden, and he does a good job with the ball in the air too. So he's somebody that I think in the play action game will be really, really good. And he'll have something to prove. Loic Foundry is somebody that I'm really excited about because he's going to take on the role of he's going to run curl routes, hitch routes, corners are going to get tired of tackling him. He's the guy, kind of like Colby Taylor on defense, kind of like that same build where he's just big, tall, he's just out there and you're just like, good Lord, that is a big dude. What are we going to do with that? What are we going to do against that? He's going to catch hitches and slants and curls and things that we got to come up and make a tackle on him as he drops his shoulder on us. What are we going to do with that late in the game? Because that's going to get really, really old tackling him, and I'm here for that. And I think Tim Beck will take advantage of that. Now, what to make of these freshmen? Your slot guy is obviously Tristan Brown, right? And what Tim Beck really likes to do scheme wise with the jet sweep is he likes to feature that with the quarterback run game. They run the jet power read, and sometimes they'll run tailback jet power read. And this guy he has a chance to hit home runs. He has a chance to get the edge, and he has a chance to go. I think he's having somebody like Tristan Brown with perimeter speed, fast screen type speed, bubble screen type speed, orbit motion type things, and different avenues, stuff that Keyshawn Johnson would have done had he stayed on board. But I think when you look at what he can do, that really, when I talk about the offensive line, that really kind of opens things up a little bit. And we're going to do a slow countdown of top storylines coming into spring. Now Steve did 5 storylines. He did all in one episode. I'm going to stretch this thing out, right? I'm going to do your top storylines, and this is. Outside of the obvious quarterback battle, this is going to be kind of the obvious one as well. This is going to be kind of the most because this position has a lot to kind of figure out. Does Marquise Barrett and Joseph McVay, do they have a chance of getting in somewhere? Does Whit Edwards kind of get a chance of playing like that 10 personnel tight end? I say that with air quotes because he's a bigger receiver. What's going to happen with this? There's a lot of potential here, and I'm excited because scheme wise, you can get creative with these guys. You can do different things. Jeremiah Dillon's going to be kind of your all around guy. He's going to be able to run crossing routes. You're going to be able to move him all over the formation. Loic Foundry is going to be a guy that's on the edge that people hate to tackle. Tristan Brown, Junior Sherrill, those guys are going to be kind of squirrely across the middle on crossing routes, deep out routes, hitting the perimeter, corner routes, whip routes, option routes, things that kind of get them in space. And once you get those guys one-on-one with a defender in space, it's not a good situation. And So that's going to be exciting. So there's a lot of things scheme wise you can get creative with these guys, and there's a lot of. I think the expectations are low as well, which helps because people look at Vandy's wide receiver room and they're like, well, Tim Beck's not going to throw the ball very much, and that's not true. But B, they're going to have high expectations, which you're in the SEC, you're always going to have high expectations. So don't say that I'm not going to say that there's no expectations or low expectations, but relative to like other positions, they're probably on the lower end of like, okay, we're like, if we get anything out of these guys collectively, this is going to be a good season. And they have a chance to kind of like get a lot of guys very valuable experience without that superstar mentality. And I think there was some chemistry problems with the three guys that left. Like McGowan and Shepard, I think, became superstars and got tired of the losing culture. And so I don't blame them. I probably would too. I don't know that I would have acted the same way that I've heard Will Shepard, but they've moved on, so I'm not going to harp on them. They've moved on. McGowan's at South Carolina. Wish him well. Will Shepard, wish him well. I think he's at Colorado, so wish him well. I'm always rooting for Dion. I like Dion. I'm a fan of Dion. And London Humphrey's down at Georgia. Like, wish him well. Like these, I don't wish ill will on these guys. These guys moved on, right? And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out for them here. They just didn't feel like it worked out well for them. They probably got frustrated, and they probably, did some things that they probably not the greatest, and they probably did things that they probably would admit that are not the greatest. And they're in better situations, or at least that's how they feel. So here we go. We got a new crew. That I want to focus on, give all the attention to, and they're hungry. And they're willing, and they're ready to absolutely rock and roll. So I'm excited about this group. I think there's a lot of things we can do. We'll see kind of how all this plays out in the spring. We'll see kind of how the incumbent guys are, including the transfers, and kind of see where they fit, who fits where, how they're gonna use some of these guys, what schemes they're gonna go with, like all that good stuff. So I'm excited. I'm also excited to see kind of what Clark Lee's defense can do. I think his defense is going to be very, very interesting. There's a lot of things involved with this defense. It's very multifaceted, but we're going to talk about that here next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. So happy Super Bowl to all that celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and playing some super bets. So you're going to think this is a cop-out, but I love all the above. The whole Super Bowl experience is phenomenal. The lead up, the game, the food like buffalo chicken dip, pizza crescent rolls, the veggie pizza that we have for my vegetarian friends, the sausage balls, the dips, the Rotel dips, and the cheese dips, and the corn dips, and the buffalo chicken dips, like all of that stuff, man. I just freaking load up. And then of course chicken wings is always a good choice too. All right. I also like betting props. Like what color Gatorade's going to be dumped? Does the national anthem go over and under? And depending on who's singing it, it could be like over 2.5 minutes or whatever. I also like the standard over under and spread. So FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored. They break it down by half and so much more. There's a ton. You'll get lost in it, actually. New customers, if you join today, you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an unofficial sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back. It's the Locked On Vandy podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen. It's Vanderbilt Commodores all day or every day right here on YouTube and wherever you find your podcast. We're not all day every day. I'm not 24/7, but I'm sure some of you wish I was. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thank you to the everydayers. Man, without you guys, I couldn't do what I do. This is awesome, man. Huge thank you to the everydayers. Also follow us on social media at Locked On Vandy on X and Instagram. And you can follow me at Coach Burton 36 on X as well. So defensive philosophy, man. Like, this is kind of another storyline. It's kind of like a bigger storyline that's not just like we're going to see the very first layer of it in the spring. But like, this was kind of like an instant storyline when Clark Lee decided to take over as defensive play caller. And I'm gonna kind of break down the complete overhaul in the operation and why I think this will lead to a more successful season for Clark Lee. I'm going to kind of get into the first aspect of it, right? We're going to break that down piece by piece as we go as well, because like the way the staff is broken down, I'm going to talk about that in future episodes. But I think the first big domino is him deciding that, hey, enough's enough, man. Like, these coordinators just didn't work out. They weren't ready for the SEC. They weren't ready for Vanderbilt. So I'm going to do what I did to get myself in this position. I'm going to call the defensive plays. To me, that is a phenomenal idea. And for him to do that, I think just has he finally, or at least he's showing, he may have always had this awareness, but he's finally showing that he has the awareness that his program stinks right now, because he just kind of let everything kind of slip, and he was trying to be the CEO. And I appreciate that. And, you have, bigger things to oversee, and you got to see the whole picture. But, where it's, where it kind of slipped was like the minor details that he just wasn't. And a lot of that is just experience. Like, even in 3 years, if you've never been a head coach, like, it takes you a long time to really find that perfect balance of seeing all the little details and managing all the little details, and keeping a big picture view of your program as well. So that's a very kind of a tough thing to do. So applaud him for doing that. He's hired some guys that will help him with the smaller details and kind of like some of the really kind of gritty work that a head coach can't do as a play caller. Like, he's got some really good guys in place to do that and help him carry that load. So for that, I think he's going to be I think that's going to help him as well. So philosophy wise, like, what I really like about this Clark Lee defense is I just like the overall aggression. I watched some more clips. I watched some more things from different games from the 2019 season. And one thing I noticed about a common thread that I noticed about his defense is that they're moving, man. They move and they blitz. He's aggressive. And I noticed, like, especially in the red zone, but they played a lot of man coverage. So, like, with that, like, here's the plus and minus of kind of having a more aggressive philosophy. When you blitz a lot, when you stunt and slant the way Notre Dame did that year and the way Vandy will likely do, is that occasionally when you get a really good gap scheme team, like when they ran into Michigan that year at Notre Dame in 2019, where Michigan just boat raced them, because Michigan had probably the best offensive line in the country that year, and all they did was just collapse everything down and pull and kick out. There was just nothing left. And they did a really good job, I think, with play designs and some things that kind of got those linebackers either flat-footed or moving away from the play. But when you blitz a lot, when you stun a lot, I think sometimes you leave yourself open to big plays. Obviously, it's a very high risk, high reward type system, because when you're on and you're moving and you're getting good penetration, you got guys that are fresh in there, and you've got a little bit of speed, a little bit of like quickness. I think you can counterbalance some of the down blocks and things like that, and you can kind of disrupt some things. And that's kind of the goal. Like, that's kind of like, and honestly, like with Vanderbilt, like if you're going to go 2-10 again, like at least be far more aggressive on defense. At least play some aggressive coverages. At least try to match up man coverage. I think you've got some better corners to do so. I think you can do some combo stuff to where like you might play like match cover 4, which is basically just off man. You can get into some stuff where you have some personnel groups, and I'll get into more defensive personnel but later. But like you have some corners now that's come from the portal that can play. Like you get Colby Taylor pressed up against somebody. Like I have a hard time believing that with his reach and kind of his strength at the size he is, that I have a hard time believing that if he sticks his big paw on your chest, your timing's off, right? And that's a wrap. Like Marlon Jones, he is somebody that was all conference. Granted, he played at a smaller school, and I get that, and I get where people are coming from on that, but like he's good. He's all conference for a reason. And so it's going to be an aggressive style, and I'm here for it. And the concerns are with aggressiveness is sometimes you slant yourself out of the play. Sometimes you blitz yourself. Sometimes you call the wrong blitz at the wrong time, and you end up leaving big giant gaps, or if a blitz doesn't get home, you end up kind of leaving your guys out to dry on the back end, and that happens from time to time. Hell, it happened to Georgia, and they're considered the best defense in the country every single year. That stuff happens to Georgia. That stuff happens to Alabama. Like against Michigan, Alabama's getting gashed, and they have a well-respected defense. So like good defenses are still going to get gashed. So So I implore you, when you go to look at Clark Lee highlights and Clark Lee's stuff from time as defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, like you're going to see him. Like Davis Mills is an NFL quarterback. He was throwing some freaking dimes to his receivers, and they were making one-on-one plays. Like those were physical matchups. Those weren't scheme-related things. Those were man-to-man like physical matchups that their receiver won, and Davis Mills threw a perfect ball. Like there's some things that happen against these defenses. So like I think for people to get kind of bent out of shape as far as, well, they gave up big plays at Notre Dame. Well, yeah, I mean Kirby Smart gives up big plays. He's considered one of the top defensive minds in all of college football, right? People give up big plays. Like these things are designed for the offense. And to know that, like for the most part, you're going to get a group that plays hard. They're going to play physical, and they're going to swarm, and they're going to tackle well. That's going to be an emphasis. So like you're going to see a better defense. Are they going to? And you're going to see a defense that is going to create a lot of good opportunities for themselves, a lot of takeaways and things like that. So for that, I'm kind of excited about that. But you've got to take the good with the bad. You've got to take the bad with the good. Yes, you're going to create a few more takeaways. But also, yes, you're going to give up 20-yard gash plays on 3rd and long. Like it's just going to happen every once in a while. Teams are going to get you, but you can't dwell on that, and you can't sit there and cry over spilled milk. You got to move on. So, and just like that, I'm going to move on. So we'll get more into the minutia of the scheme and kind of where specific guys fit, like personnel stuff. So we'll get more into that as we go as well. So stay tuned for that also later on down the road. So that's going to be it's going to be fun, especially when spring practice starts. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show. We're going to take a very, very quick break. We're going to wrap up the show we're going to wrap up the show. And we're going to see why Jacob Humphrey is going to make a big impact in the outfield. So stay tuned. Local ads. All right, welcome back. It is the last and final segment of tonight's show, or today's show, I should say, not tonight, depending on when you're watching this. This is the first day of February. After a long 75 days of January, it is finally February. So welcome in. Locked On Vandy Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen. Make sure Locked On SEC is your second listen of the day. And we appreciate that. And everydayers, we appreciate you as well. I appreciate you. I say we like I have this big giant team around me. I'm a team of one. I'm a one-man wolf pack. So, all right. Vandy Baseball, they got a loaded roster. And part of that roster is guys they've added in the transfer portal. We've talked Jaden Davis as a transfer infielder, utility player. We've talked Levi Huseman transferring in from Coastal Carolina. Today we're going to look at Jacob Humphrey from UMass Lowell. All right, he's an outfielder. He can kind of really play anywhere, but I think he's going to make an impact in the outfield, probably left or right field. He comes in with a 317 average. He comes in as a junior. He stole 79 bases over those 2 seasons. He had 46 in his freshman season. He has just 11 total home runs, so he's not a big-time power hitter. He's a guy that's going to slap the ball and run. And he's going to be a guy that's going to get on base and drive the ball into gaps and things like that. He played center field at UMass Lowell. He also played second base, shortstop, and right field, probably all at the same time, given that program. Like, he played it all at the same time. I kid. But he's going to be competing against Calvin Hewitt, Matthew Polk, J.D. Rogers, Troy LeNeve, and probably R.J. Austin for a spot in the outfield. And I think that's kind of where he's going to make the impact. I think all of those guys are going to make impacts. I think R.J. Austin's going to be your starting center fielder, so I don't think center field's in the cards for him. But I think right field is a definite possibility for a left-hander. That's kind of where you want to put your left-handers, is in right field, because you have that really good angle to throw to the plate. And you're covering the foul line with your throwing arm. But I really kind of like how he plays. You have a good mix of power guys, but like, if you're going to score runs, you got to have guys on base to drive in. And he's somebody that's going to get on base, and he's going to kind of make the defense have to worry about him because of the steals and because of his running ability. So getting a really, really solid piece here. Not sure. Like, there's a lot of answers to be had with this Vanderbilt baseball team. Like, Tim Corbin's got a lot of things to figure out as far as like his starting lineup, who's batting where, who's playing where. Like, I don't think there's a whole lot of spots that are locked up, so to speak. I think there's a few, but there's not a ton, right? And we talked Carter Holton, who's finally back from injury. And he's actually throwing some good stuff. He's got some good command. He's working on a better command of his pitches, and he's actually working on a new pitch. It's called the Terminator. No, I'm just kidding. That's a major league reference. So it's going to be a loaded roster, and these transfer guys and these guys coming off injuries are going to have to find their way into a little niche here. Like, R.J. Austin was like Mr. Swiss Army knife. Like, talked about him yesterday. He's going to have to factor in. He's probably, if he wants to play consistently, going to have to play outfield, which is fine by him. All right. LeNeve is somebody that's going to be playing in the outfield. He's going to factor in. Like, these guys that can hit consistently and get on base, whether they hit for power or not, that's irrelevant. But as long as they can drive the ball, put runs across the plate, and support the pitching, I think those guys are going to be the guys that find themselves consistently in the lineup. And I think Jacob Humphrey can definitely be one of those guys. So excited about this team. Like, I when it comes to baseball, it's a team that it's one of those teams you look at and you're like, man, this is a team that's loaded. This is a team that has a chance to really do some things. And a team that, if they get an injury or two, they're going to be okay. Like, they have a pitching staff that I think could win every game. Obviously they won't, because that's just kind of how baseball is. But they have this capability of, like, their weekend rotation is really, really strong. Their bullpen is really strong. It's going to depend on, like, the bullpen guys, like, how consistently they can come in and throw strikes. I know that sometimes that's a concern. I think if you're a pitcher and you haven't had concern with command and walks occasionally, you're just not pitching. You're probably just not throwing at all. But one of the things that that you would like to see a storyline coming into the season is, like, the pitching staff. Can they grow into better pitchers and less of throwers of the baseball? So that'll be interesting. And of course, Jacob Humphrey again is It's exciting. It's exciting the possibilities because he has a really good batting average. He's a guy that can, once he gets on base, he's going to wreak havoc, and we like that. So, Vandy boy's going to be strong. Let's just put it out there. I'm going to end the show with that. That's the nugget I'm going to give you. The Vandy boys are going to be strong, and it's going to be partly because of Jacob Humphrey in some form or fashion. He's going to be there and a fixture somewhere. So, anyway, that's going to do it for us here on the Locked On Vandy podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making us your first listen. Follow us, like us, subscribe us, find us, give us feedback, and all that good stuff. And until then, we'll see you back here tomorrow. We'll wrap up the week, and we'll get you ready to roll and get you one step closer to opening day and the start of spring practice. Anchor down. Goodbye.